Hello, everybody. Welcome to Brandon's Haunted Library. My name is Brandon, your undead librarian, and I read and talk about fantasy, literary fiction, and of course, horror. Thank you for choosing my video. Today, we're counting down my top 20 favorite horror reads from this year, the year of 2024. These are the books that sent chills down my spine, kept me up late at night, and left me in awe at what these incredible authors can do in the horror genre. From dark social commentary to classic horror tropes flipped on their heads, each of these books brought something fresh and memorable to the table. Now let's get spooky and dig into the list. Coming in at number 20 is an impressive anthology that had me hooked from the first story. Out There Screaming, edited by the great Jordan Peele, is a standout horror anthology showcasing 19 incredible Black authors, including N.K. Jemisin, Tananarive Due, and P. Djeli Clark. Inspired by the concept of the oubliette and the sunken place from Jordan Peele's movie Get Out, these stories are deeply unsettling and have socially reflective themes. Nnedi Okorafor's Dark Home, P. Djeli Clark's Hide and Seek, and Tananarive Due's The Writer were particularly highlights for me, blending mastery of horror storytelling with powerful social commentary. This anthology overall delivered a haunting and thought-provoking read. At number 19, we have a haunting and literary novel that I still find myself thinking about. Chlorine by Jade Song is an immersive and darkly beautiful coming-of-age tale about a high school swimmer who dreams of transforming into a mermaid and takes that obsession to dark places. Set against the intense backdrop of athletic pressure in school sports, the story dives deep into themes of identity and obsession. What I love most about this book is its poetic prose and the way Jade Song balances raw emotion with an almost surreal quality. It's a story that definitely is visceral and haunting and sticks with you long after you've finished. Coming in at number 18 is a book that had me anxious in my apartment and double checking the locks on the door. Nestlings by Nat Cassidy is a creepy horror novel taking inspiration from Rosemary's Baby. It's about a couple who move into a seemingly perfect apartment after the complicated birth of their first child, which left their mother paralyzed in a wheelchair. And she slowly discovers that the building and their neighbors are hiding something terrifying. It's a modern twist on the classic haunted house tale that is incredibly tense, blending psychological dread with visceral, spine-tingling horror. And it was incredibly well written and features a reading acknowledgement section that is so thoughtful. At number 17, we've got a book that combines horror and romance in a way that's unexpectedly delightful. Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison is a witty, self-aware horror romance about our protagonist who moves back to her small hometown to support her pregnant sister. But shortly after arriving, she's attacked by a werewolf, and her life takes a supernatural turn as she juggles her new reality as a werewolf with everyday life and her personal relationships. What I love most about this book is how seamlessly Harrison blends horror elements with the rom-com energy that this book brought. This is a perfect read if you want something light, witty, and a little spooky. And I don't mean that in a negative way or anything. I really love this book. And now number 16, The Watchers by A.M. Shine is a chilling and claustrophobic horror story which became a movie earlier this year. It's about a woman who gets stranded off the road in the forest and gets stalked by mysterious otherworldly creatures and finds shelter in a bunker with a group of strangers. A.M. Shine's writing is immersive and really draws out the sense of isolation. It uses Irish folklore in such a cool way and it's incredibly creepy. At number 15 is a book that completely warped my sense of reality in the best way. We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver is a cosmic horror story that is as terrifying as it is mind-bending. It follows Eve, who's flipping houses with her girlfriend when a family shows up claiming that the father used to live there. A snowstorm quickly traps them all inside and the boundaries of reality start to crumble in inexplicable ways. It expertly uses mixed media, incorporating found footage and Reddit threads. These elements added to the paranoia this novel gives and makes the horror feel grounded and eerily plausible. This is a horror book that keeps you guessing. Coming in at number 14 is a haunting tale from a legendary voice in horror. The Reformatory by Tananarive Due is a recent release from her and a powerful, chilling piece of horror and historical fiction set in 1950s Jim Crow, Florida. It follows a 12-year-old boy who is sent to a brutal reform school after defending his sister from the son of a wealthy landowner who is making advances on her. When he gets to the reformatory, he realizes he can see ghosts tied to the school's violent history, and they are desperate to make their presence known. It's a long book, it's just under 600 pages, but it flies by as the book alternates between the boy's perspective in the school and that of his sister who tries advocating for his release through the courts. It shows the terrifying reality of the injustices of Jim Crow-era South in our not-so-distant history. This is the perfect blend of supernatural horror and the very real terror of systemic racism in the era, from one of the greats of horror literature. At number 13 is a slasher-inspired horror novel that's a true treat for horror movie fans such as myself. My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones follows Jade Daniels, a horror-obsessed teen in a small Idaho town, as she realizes a real-life slasher might be planning to terrorize her town. Packed with nods to slasher films and deeper themes on trauma and resilience, this book is equal parts a love letter of the genre and a poignant character study. The slow burn builds to a wild, gore-filled finale that left me eager to pick up the next book in the trilogy, which I really need to prioritize in 2025. At number 12 is a classic from the late 60s that redefined horror and helped shape the horror paperback wave of the 70s and 80s. Rosemary's Baby by Ear 11 is a masterful tale of paranoia and suspense, following Rosemary, a young pregnant woman who moves into a new apartment complex and begins suspecting some satanic conspiracy about her neighbors and the baby on the way. There's some dated racial language being used in a few places, but outside of that, Levin's writing is sharp and unsettling, drawing you into a slow-building nightmare that's impossible to put down. This book was also turned into one of the best horror movies of all times, but was unfortunately directed by a terrible human being. What makes this book timeless is its ability to cause paranoia, with layers of tension and dread that sticks with you long after you've finished. A true classic of the genre. At number 11 is a slasher-inspired thriller. The Final Girls Support Group by Grady Hendrix imagines a world where popular slasher films are based on real survivors. But when a new threat arises, these final girls must face their worst fears again. This book is fast-paced, darkly funny, and packed with clever nods to classic horror films. Hendrix balances sharp meta-commentary with thoughtful explorations of trauma and survival, making it both an entertaining and layered read. This book is a must if you love slasher films. And now we're finally here, my top 10 favorite horror reads of the year. These are the books that stuck with me the most, and I'll be spending a little more time talking about each one. So let's kick it off with number 10, Indian Burial Ground by Nick Medina. Indian Burial Ground is a haunting dual timeline story set on a fictional Native American reservation in Louisiana, following Noemi and her uncle Louis as they confront both supernatural and real-world horrors. In the present, Noemi investigates the suspicious death of her boyfriend, while flashbacks of the 1980s focus on Louis' terrifying encounters with local legends, mysterious disappearances, and even a corpse sitting up at an open casket wake. But what sets this book apart is how Medina handles themes of addiction, suicide, and resilience in Native American communities, and blends it with the horrors on the page. His portrayal of addiction is raw and realistic, highlighting the impact on families and entire communities. The writing is atmospheric, blending folklore with character development in ways that are powerful and chilling. This one is a slow burn, but the emotional depth and layered storytelling make it an incredibly rewarding experience. It's not just a creepy tale, though it definitely is very creepy. It's a powerful exploration of cultural trauma and survival. At number 9, Chuck Tingle's Bury Your Gays is a satirical horror novel that balances sharp social commentary with an entertaining and uniquely told story. The book critiques the bury your gay trope in TV and film where queer characters are disproportionately killed off. And it tackles themes like homophobia, the entertainment industry, and the influence of technology on art. The story follows Misha, a gay horror writer for TV and film, who's faced with an ultimatum to kill off the queer characters in his show. His refusal sparks real-life encounters with the villains he's created that become increasingly terrifying. Misha's internal struggles and layered backstory makes him a fascinating protagonist. The novel blends satire, horror, and sci-fi while providing meaningful LGBTQ+ representation from a queer author's perspective. It delivers some tense and bloody moments, all while delivering a poignant message. Bury Your Gays is both thoughtful and wildly entertaining. And next up, at number 8, is Our Share of Night by Mariana Enriquez. This epic family saga, her only novel currently translated to English, spans nearly 600 pages and delves into themes of grief and colonialism and class disparities through the lens of Argentine history. The story follows Gaspar and his father as they grapple with a dark demonic family legacy rooted in a malevolent cult called the Order, which seeks immortality through unspeakable acts. Enriquez masterfully weaves horror with Argentine history, particularly during their military dictatorship in the 1970s, creating a chilling narrative that spans generations. The novel is divided into 6 parts, each adapting different storytelling styles and POVs across various time periods. This non-linear structure adds depth to the world building, gradually unveiling key plot points while intensifying the dark Gothic atmosphere. Enriquez's writing is eloquent and descriptive, blending graphic horror with Lovecraftian elements to explore complex family dynamics and father-son relationships. The result is a novel that challenges genre boundaries and uses psychological tension and visceral terror in a richly layered horror tale. Next, Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. There's a lot of hype surrounding this novel, and I feared being underwhelmed, but I found myself pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed this one. Mexican Gothic follows Noemi Taboada, a socialite in 1950s Mexico City who is sent to a remote estate of High Place to investigate her cousin Catalina's mysterious illness. As Noemi digs deeper, she discovers a dark, twisted history lurking beneath the surface, far more unsettling than she could have ever imagined. The slow burn pacing creates an eerie atmosphere, gradually building tension. The setting is vividly detailed, immersing you into a haunting Gothic world. Noemi is a strong, intelligent protagonist, navigating sinister forces and patriarchal constraints, and themes of colonialism adds depth to the unsettling story. The climax was so haunting to me, I still find myself thinking about it sometimes. Mexican Gothic offers a fresh, modern twist on the haunted house story, balancing classic Gothic elements with modern suspense. Next, at number 6, I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. Easily one of my favorite horror reads this year, I Was a Teenage Slasher is a wild and heartfelt homage to the slasher genre. Told as a fictional memoir, the story follows Tully Driver, who confesses to murdering classmates in the summer of 1989. Stephen Graham Jones masterfully balances the horror with relatable, even sympathetic portrayals of both Tully and his victims. The writing is raw, stream of consciousness, and deeply personal, reflecting Stephen Graham Jones' own experiences growing up in West Texas. The horror is intense with vivid gore and shocking moments, but it's offset with humor and a surprising emotional depth. This feels like a true reflection of Stephen Graham Jones' passion for the slasher genre, building on themes from his previous work, My Heart is a Chainsaw, which we discussed earlier. I Was a Teenage Slasher is a thrilling, immersive read that captures everything fans love about the slasher genre. Now we're in the top 5, and it was so difficult for me to decide a ranking for these. I changed up my order multiple times, and basically all of these ended up in first at some point in my decision process. So basically, you can consider all of these as my favorites. I highly recommend any of these. So first off, at number 5 is Jawbone by Monica Ojeda. This feminist psychological horror, written originally in Spanish by Ecuadorian author Monica Ojeda, is as unsettling as it is thought-provoking. The novel follows a group of adolescent girls at an elite private school in Ecuador whose friendships unravel after one of the teachers kidnaps one of them. Ojeda's experimental and haunting prose creates a dreamlike, disorienting atmosphere, perfectly suited to the novel's exploration of power, fear, and the blurred lines between reality and imagination. The story dives deep into feminist themes like bodily autonomy and female sexuality, reflecting societal struggles in Ecuador, where patriarchal norms remain deeply rooted in the culture. It's both disturbing and deeply purposeful, with every unsettling moment serving the story's broader themes. If you enjoy horror that pushes boundaries while tackling profound issues, Jawbone is an unforgettable and boundary-pushing read. Next up at number 4 is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. Annihilation is a science fiction horror novel that immerses you in the terrifying world of Area X, a mysterious location on Earth where the natural laws of reality seem to break down. This book follows the 12th expedition into Area X, a team of women venture encountering phenomena that defy comprehension. Vandermeer's writing is both dreamlike and unsettling, pulling readers deeper into the world where reality is constantly unraveling and fears of the unknown take over. The psychological terror builds steadily as the team grapples with their deepest fears and the mind-bending secrets lurking beneath the surface of Area X. Vandermeer explores the limits of human understanding and our place in the vast cosmic unknown. I think Annihilation is essential reading for anyone who loves science fiction horror. Next, another one of my favorite reads from this year is The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim, which came out earlier this year and was a bold debut novel for Monica Kim. This feminist psychological horror is both unsettling and unforgettable. It follows Ji-won, a young woman whose life unravels after her father abandons her mother and their family, leading her to disturbing dreams and a dark obsession for eating eyeballs. Monica Kim masterfully explores themes of rage, obsession, and the impact of racism and misogyny, weaving them into a visceral and grotesque narrative. The tension builds slowly but crescendos into shocking, vividly described body horror that lingers in your mind. What lingered most for me were the descriptions of the taste and texture, so incredibly gross. With its sharp critique of social stereotypes, this novel is a bold and unique addition to modern horror. Next, in the number 2 spot, Rest Stop is the latest novella from Nat Cassidy, which came out near the end of this year. It's a gripping horror novel that's equal parts claustrophobic, violent, and also surprisingly introspective. It follows a young musician trapped in the gas station bathroom, and the less you know about the plot going in, the better. Nat Cassidy describes it as Green Room meets Gerald's Game, and he absolutely captures the psychological and physical torture that made Gerald's Game one of my favorite Stephen King books. It's fast-paced, brutal, and even a little funny with some depth that elevates it beyond a simple gore fest. If you love intense, character-driven horror, I think this is one to pick up. Like I said earlier, the order of my top 5 was a difficult decision, but in the end, I chose Monstrillo by Gerardo Samano Cordova as my favorite horror of the year. This debut novel, published last year from Mexican author Gerardo Samano Cordova, pushes the boundaries of horror by blending cultural traditions, grief, and body horror into something both grotesque and deeply moving. Monstrillo follows Magos, a grieving mother who nurtures a piece of her deceased son's lung into a living monstrous being, Monstrillo. As Monstrillo grows, his transformation raises questions about identity, grief, and acceptance. Samano Cordova uses body horror to delve into psychological and emotional struggles, making it both deeply disturbing and profound. Split into 4 sections, each told from a different point of view, including Monstrillo's himself, the story offers a nuanced look at how grief manifests and evolves. Its exploration of cultural themes, queer identity, and the grotesque, Monstrillo stands out as a profoundly literary work of horror. It's one I highly recommend and was my number 1 favorite book I read in the horror genre in 2024. And that's my list of the top 20 horror reads of the year. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it all the way to the end of this video. It really means a lot to me. And because you stuck around, I'm going to show you a list of my favorite horror movies released this year, because it was an incredible year in film as well. And I also added a link to a Spotify playlist I made, including new music that I loved from this year. So check that out too if that's of interest to you. I also want to take a moment to thank everyone who supported me during my first few months on BookTube. When I started this channel, I wasn't sure if it was something that I'd stick to or enjoy long term, but the incredible community, the conversations we've had, and all the encouragement I've received have made this such a rewarding experience. Because of all of you, I'm excited to keep going. I'm fully planning on making this video again for the next year, and I can't wait to see how this community grows and evolves. I've got some exciting video ideas and great books on my TBR for the coming year, and I'm so looking forward to sharing them all with you. Thank you again for your support, and here's to another year of spooky reads and thoughtful discussion. Until next time, stay spooky and Happy New Year.